Digging up the past. The woman found alive under the plantation floorboards. The first pry of the iron bar didn't sound like work. It sounded like a mistake. Wood complaining, nails screaming, the parlor itself trying to keep a secret. Etta had been told to clear the room fast. "Move with your hands, not your mouth," Overseer Pike snapped, and the house slaves moved the heavy sofa and the carved chairs, like their bones were borrowed and could be taken back at any time. The big house smelled of wax and lemon peel and old tobacco, and underneath it, something else threaded through. Something sour and human that didn't belong in a room meant for music. Mr. Hallowell stood in the doorway, one hand braced on the frame, like he might tip over. He was not old enough to look as old as he did. His wife, Celeste, stood beside him in a black dress that fit like a decision. She held a fan she did not need, opening and closing it in small clicks that matched the carpenter's hammer. "That board," the carpenter said, pointing. He was a hired white man from town, name of Rusk, with sawdust in his hair like snow. "It ain't right, hear that?" He stomped. The floor answered with a hollow thud, different from the solid thump everywhere else. A pocket under the parlor boards. A space. Celeste's fan stopped. Pike leaned forward, eager the way dogs get eager when they smell blood. Maybe rats. Etta didn't think it was rats. Rats didn't make the house feel like it was holding its breath. Rusk slid the iron bar into the seam and pushed down. The board lifted a finger's width, then two. Then, like something underneath had decided it was done waiting, there came a faint, frantic tapping from below. Not wood settling, not nails, knuckles. 3 taps, then a pause, then 4, fast and pleading. Etta's hands went cold around the chair legs she was carrying. The sound wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Every person in that room understood what it meant. Someone was alive where no one was supposed to be. Rusk hesitated. "Lord above!" Celeste's voice cut through the air, thin and sharp. "Enough! Nail it back!" Mr. Hallowell turned his head slowly toward her. "Celeste?" Her eyes didn't move to him. They stayed on the board as if she could stare it into obedience. "It's rot," she said. "A pocket of rot. Nail it back, and we'll have it replaced properly when we're not entertaining." Rusk swallowed. "Ma'am, The tapping came again, harder now, like fists slamming from the other side of a coffin. Rusk's face drained. "That ain't rot!" Pike moved as if he'd been waiting for permission his whole life. He grabbed the bar from Rusk and yanked. Nails squealed. The board came up with a crack that made the mirror on the far wall tremble. A smell rose out like a confession. Damp earth, stale sweat, old urine, and the sickly sweet rot of breath that hadn't touched fresh air in too long. Etta clapped a hand over her mouth before she could stop herself. The gap beneath the board was dark but not empty. Something shifted, something pale. A hand, fingers, thin as twigs, nails broken, reached up and clawed at the edge of the floor. Then a face rose into the sliver of light, like the moon crawling out of clouds. Not a corpse, not a rat. A woman. Her hair was a wild mat against her skull, and her skin had the gray waxiness of candle stubs. Her eyes, enormous, fever bright, blinked like they didn't understand light anymore. She opened her mouth, and when she spoke, her voice was a rasp, like paper tearing. "Don't let her..." Her gaze snapped to Celeste Hallowell. Celeste did not scream. She did not step back. She simply closed her fan and held it like a weapon. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then the woman tried to pull herself up, and her shoulders caught on the floor edge. Bones too sharp, body too weak. She fell back into the dark with a soft, choking sound. Etta's feet moved without Etta's permission. Before Pike could block her, before Celeste could say a single word, Etta dropped to her knees and leaned into the gap. "Ma'am," she whispered, not knowing what else to call a woman in the parlor floor. "Can you hear me?" From below, a small sound, a breath, then a whisper that barely made it out. "Etta." Etta froze. No one in that house called her by her name unless they wanted something. The whisper came again, stronger, with panic scraping at it. "Etta, please!" Mr. Hallowell's voice cracked. "Who is she?" Celeste answered too fast. "A lunatic, a vagrant, someone who crawled under the house to steal. Pike, drag her out and toss her to the sheriff." Pike's mouth curled into something hungry. He crouched and reached down. Etta slapped his hand away before she could think. The room went still again, still in the way a church goes still when someone knocks over a casket. Pike stared at Etta, like she had turned into a snake. "You put your hand on me?" Etta's heart hammered so hard she tasted iron. She knew what he could do. She'd seen what he had done, but her eyes were locked on that gap, because something about the whisper had stirred a memory she didn't want to have. Mr. Hallowell stepped forward, shaky but stubborn. "No one touches her until I know." Celeste's fan snapped open. Click, click, click. "You are not well," she said to her husband, voice sweet as poison. "Your heart, my heart," he spat, surprising even himself, "is not the only thing in this house that can break." He looked down into the gap. "Bring her out," he said, quieter now. "Gently." Pike's jaw tightened, but he obeyed. He reached in again, slower this time, and gripped the woman's forearm. She screamed, not loud, but raw, like the sound had been saving itself for months. She flinched from Pike as if his touch burned. Her eyes rolled wildly. "Not him!" she rasped. "Not him!" Etta grabbed a folded shawl from the chair and tossed it toward Mr. Hallowell. "Wrap her," she said, voice shaking. Before she sees what?" "Before she sees Celeste standing there like a judge." Pike hauled the woman up. Her body came into the light, and every person in the room understood at once why she had survived down there. She hadn't been living in a hole. She'd been living in a space made for someone. A crawl space widened and carved, lined with boards, with a little hatch like a mouth. Somebody had prepared it, and the woman wasn't dressed like a vagrant. Under the grime, she wore a nightdress that had once been fine, lace at the collar now yellowed and torn. Around her wrist was a thin gold bracelet, delicate, familiar. Etta knew that bracelet. She'd polished it once, years ago, when she was small enough to be assigned to dusting the silver and shining the little things white ladies loved. That bracelet belonged to Miss Adelaide. Miss Adelaide Vane, the young wife of Mr. Hallowell's son. Adelaide, who had fallen ill and passed quietly one winter morning, the day they'd closed the parlor curtains and let the preacher pray, and told the slaves to keep their eyes down. Adelaide, who had been buried in the family plot out back with lilies on the coffin. Adelaide, who was now blinking in the parlor light like a ghost who refused to do her job. Mr. Hallowell made a sound as if something inside him snapped. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not—" The woman lifted her head. Her lips trembled. "Sir?" she rasped. "You left me." Celeste took one step forward, and for the first time her mask slipped. It was only a flicker, a flash of something sharp and furious, but Etta saw it. Fear. And then Celeste smiled. "Oh," she said softly, as if she'd just spotted a spider on a curtain. "How clever. To steal my dead daughter-in-law's bracelet and play it haunting us." Adelaide's eyes snapped to her, wild. "You!" she hissed, voice gaining strength from hatred. "You put me—" Celeste's smile widened. "She's delirious." "Celeste," Mr. Hallowell said, voice trembling. "Where is her grave?" Celeste did not look at him. "Exactly where it ought to be," she said. "Pike, take her to the smokehouse. Lock the door. Send for Dr. Wren. And make sure none of the field hands see this nonsense." "Nonsense!" Adelaide croaked, and suddenly she lunged. Her hands, weak, shaking, shot out and grabbed Celeste's sleeve. "Tell him," she rasped, pulling like she wanted to drag the truth out through fabric. "Tell him what you did. Tell him what you—" Pike ripped her away, and Adelaide's nails tore a line down Celeste's dress. A single thread hung loose like a snapped nerve. The room held another breath. Mr. Hallowell stared at the torn fabric, then at his wife's face, then at Adelaide's. In that stare, Etta saw something change. Not belief, not yet, suspicion. And in this house, suspicion was more dangerous than a gun, because it didn't make a bang. It made a slow, careful opening of doors that had been locked for years. Pike shoved Adelaide toward the hallway, and she stumbled, feet bare, ankles bruised. As she passed Etta, she leaned in, almost falling against her, and whispered so softly only Etta could hear, "Under the boards, there's more." Then Pike yanked her away. Celeste turned her attention to Etta, like a lantern swinging to find a rat. "You," Celeste said, voice pleasant, "go to the kitchen. Bring hot water, cloths, and no opinions." Etta swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." As she stood, her gaze flicked to the gap in the floor. Darkness stared back, a hollow that had held a human being like a secret kept underfoot. Under the boards, there's more. Etta had learned young that the past didn't stay buried. Not in this house, not on this land. The past was like roots, quiet, patient, and hungry. It cracked stone. It lifted floors. It reached up when you thought you were safe and grabbed your ankle. Etta went to the kitchen, but she didn't go alone. The sound of that tapping followed her down the hall, echoing in her bones. In the kitchen, the other women had already heard. News moved through a plantation faster than orders. It slipped under doors, crawled through cracks, sat on shoulders like birds. Old Minta, the cook, thick-armed and sharp-eyed, looked up as Etta came in pale-faced. "Don't tell me," Minta said low. "Don't you tell me the dead done got tired of being dead." Etta set a pot on the stove with shaking hands. "Miss Adelaide," Minta's face tightened. "Ain't no Miss Adelaide. Miss Adelaide in the ground." "She's not," Etta whispered. She was under the parlor floor. Silence swallowed the room. Someone dropped a spoon. It clinked like a bell. Minta's eyes slid to the ceiling as if she could see through wood and plaster into the parlor above. "Then somebody put her there," Minta said slowly. "And that somebody didn't do it for mercy." Etta's fingers fumbled with a cloth. "She said there's more under the boards." Minta's mouth went hard. "More what?" Etta didn't know, but she felt it. A hidden thing, waiting to be found, and the house itself sitting on top of it like a lie. A boy ran in, little Joe, one of the younger houseboys, eyes wide. "Pike say nobody go near smokehouse," he blurted. "He say if anybody breathe that woman's name, he'll—" "Go," Minta snapped. "And don't repeat Pike's words like they holy." Joe fled. Minta leaned closer to Etta. "Listen to me. You keep your face blank. You keep your steps slow. You hear?" Etta nodded. "And you don't go digging where you ain't supposed to dig," Minta added. But her eyes said something else. "You already will." Etta carried the basin of hot water toward the smokehouse with another girl, Ruthie, who was young, but not young enough to be safe from anything. Ruthie whispered as they walked, "If she was under the floor, how she breathed." Etta looked at the big house, sunlight on its white boards like innocence painted fresh. "Because somebody wanted her to," she said, "or because somebody forgot to finish." They reached the smokehouse. Pike stood outside, arms folded, his shadow long. He looked at the steaming basin like it offended him. "You go in," he told Etta. "You clean her. You keep her quiet. You hear me? Quiet." Etta's throat tightened. "Yes, sir." Pike leaned closer, voice low enough to be private but not kind. "Some things happen in this house, and stay in this house," he said. "Some things get buried again. Understand?" Etta nodded, because nodding was survival. He opened the smokehouse door. The smell hit first, salt, old meat, cured fat, and under it, sickness. Adelaide lay on a pallet on the floor. Her wrists were tied loosely, not because she couldn't run, but because Pike needed the comfort of knots. Her eyes snapped to Etta, and in them was not madness. It was focus, sharp as a needle. When Ruthie bent to set down the water, Adelaide's gaze flicked to her and back, quick as a blade. She waited until Pike shut the door behind the girls, and the heavy latch fell into place. Then Adelaide whispered, "How much do you know?" Etta swallowed. "I know they buried you." Adelaide's lips tightened. "They buried a box." Ruthie's breath caught. "What?" Adelaide struggled to sit, wincing. "There was no body," she said, voice trembling but steady. "Celeste said the fever took me. She said I'd frighten the house if I was seen. She gave me laudanum. She said it was medicine." Etta felt her stomach turn. She had seen laudanum bottles in the medicine cabinet, sweet-smelling, quiet-making. Adelaide's eyes burned. "I woke up under the floor," she whispered. "I screamed until my throat bled. No one came. Then she came." "Celeste," Etta said. Adelaide nodded once, harsh. "She slid a little panel open, like feeding a dog. She said, 'If you behave, you'll live.'" Ruthie's hands shook as she dipped a cloth in water. "Why?" Adelaide laughed without humor. "Why does she do anything? Because she can." Etta leaned in. "You said there's more under the boards." Adelaide's face shifted, and for the first time she looked afraid in a way that wasn't just hunger. "There's a second space," she whispered. "A smaller one. It's not empty." Etta's chest tightened. "A person?" Adelaide swallowed. "Not now." Ruthie's cloth paused midair. Adelaide's eyes locked on Etta. "You ever wonder why Celeste don't have children?" she asked. Etta's mouth went dry. That was the kind of question that got you whipped if you answered wrong. Adelaide continued anyway. "She had one," she whispered. "A girl. Years ago. Hidden. Not dead. Hidden." Etta's pulse hammered. She remembered something. An older slave woman once telling a story half under her breath about a baby that disappeared and a mother who disappeared after her. Etta had been little. She had thought it was a ghost tale meant to keep children from wandering. Adelaide's voice dropped further. "Celeste's girl grew up in this house," she said. "Not upstairs. Under it. Under the boards." Ruthie made a small whimper. Etta forced herself to breathe. "That's—" she started, but the words wouldn't come. Adelaide's gaze flicked to the door, then back. "Celeste built a prison under her own parlor," she whispered, "so she could keep her sins where she could step on them." Etta felt cold all over. "Why tell me?" Adelaide's eyes sharpened. "Because you're the only one who heard me before," she said. "You dusted the parlor when you were small. You used to hum. You used to stop when you heard tapping, didn't you?" Etta's heart lurched. It was true. Years ago, when she was no bigger than Ruthie's little sister, she'd been in the parlor with a feather duster, humming low because humming made the work feel less like dying. And once, just once, she'd heard a sound under the floor, a faint scratch. She'd told herself it was a rat. She hadn't told anyone. She had buried it, like everything else. Adelaide leaned closer, voice urgent. "Celeste keeps papers," she whispered. "Letters, contracts. Proof. I saw them before she drugged me. In the desk with the false bottom. The one with the brass dolphin. If you find it, you can—" The smokehouse door slammed. Pike's voice cut through the wood. "How's she doing?" Adelaide jerked back, breath ragged. Etta lifted her voice, forcing calm. "She's feverish," she said. "We're cleaning her." Pike's footsteps paced outside, slow. "Don't let her fill your head," he warned. "She'll say anything." Then his footsteps moved away. Etta looked at Adelaide. "A desk," she whispered. Adelaide nodded, eyes shining. "And one more thing," she whispered. "If Celeste realizes I spoke, she won't bury a box next time." That night, Etta did not sleep. The quarters were full of whispers, but Etta's mind was louder than all of them. Under the parlor boards, a prison. Under the boards, a second space. Under the boards, a child growing into a woman, like a root growing in darkness. Etta lay on her pallet, staring at the ceiling, listening to the plantation's nighttime sounds, frogs, distant owls, the soft creak of wood cooling. And underneath it all, she thought she heard it again. Tapping. Or maybe it was only her heartbeat, knocking from the inside, begging to be let out. Before dawn, Etta slipped into the big house. She did it the way all desperate things get done on plantations. Quietly, quickly, and with the knowledge that if you were caught, no one would call it bravery. They would call it insolence, and they would punish it until it stopped looking like a person. The hallway was dark. The rug swallowed sound. Etta moved like a shadow that did not belong to itself. Celeste's study door was locked. Etta's fingers trembled as she tested the knob anyway, as if hope might undo iron. It didn't. So she did what she always did when the front door was closed. She went around. The kitchen pantry had a small window that didn't latch properly. Etta eased it open, slipped her hand in, and lifted the hook. She climbed through, landing softly among sacks of flour and jars of preserves. She crossed to the servants' corridor, then to the back stair, then up. The study was on the second floor. The door was locked, but locks on the big house were not made for slaves. They were made for other white people. Minta had once shown Etta how to slide a thin knife into the latch and lift. Etta's hands did it now, sweating. The latch clicked. The door opened. The study smelled like ink and cigar smoke and money. The desk with the brass dolphin was near the window. Etta's breath caught. The dolphin's head gleamed in the faint light, mouth open like it was laughing at her. She approached like the desk might bite. The top drawer was locked. The second drawer, too. Etta tried the bottom. It slid open with a soft rasp. Inside were ledgers. No, not ledgers, she corrected herself bitterly, because she refused to let the house be predictable. Account books, letters, seals. And beneath them, tucked in the corner like it didn't want to be seen, a small key on a ribbon. Etta's pulse leapt. She grabbed the key and shut the drawer gently. Footsteps creaked in the hallway. Etta froze. Key clenched in her fist so tight the metal bit her skin. The doorknob turned. Etta's mind went blank, then sharp. She slid behind the heavy curtain by the window, pressing herself into the narrow space, barely breathing. The door opened. Celeste stepped in. She wore a robe, hair loose, candle in hand. The flame flickered, throwing shadows that made her face look carved. She closed the door behind her and crossed to the desk without hesitation, like she knew exactly why she was here. She opened the bottom drawer, moved papers quickly, fingers practiced, then she stopped. Her hand hovered. The key was gone. Celeste's face did not change at first. Then her eyes lifted, slow, scanning the room. Etta pressed deeper into the curtain, heart slamming. Celeste's gaze drifted toward the window, toward the curtain. For a moment, the candlelight wavered, and Etta was sure she had been seen. Then Celeste smiled, small, private. She closed the drawer, turned, and walked to the bookshelf. She pulled out a book, not to read, but to reveal something behind it, a narrow panel in the wall, a hidden compartment. Etta's blood ran colder than before. The desk had been one secret. The wall had another. Celeste slid her hand into the compartment and withdrew a bundle of letters tied with ribbon. Red ribbon, like a wound dressed up pretty. She held the letters to the candle as if checking they were real. Then she whispered to no one and to the house itself. I told you to stay buried. Etta's skin prickled. Celeste turned toward the door, and then, like the house wanted to prove Adelaide right, there came a faint sound from below, so faint Etta might have imagined it if fear hadn't sharpened her ears. A soft thump from under the floor. Celeste paused, candle held still. Her smile vanished. She listened. Another thump. A scrape. Celeste's jaw tightened. She moved to the corner of the room where a rug lay. She pulled it back, revealing a trap door. Small, square, the wood grain almost invisible unless you knew to look. Etta's breath caught so hard it hurt. Celeste knelt, pressed her fingers into a seam and lifted. A breath of cold, damp air rose. Celeste leaned down and spoke into the darkness, voice low and furious. "Be quiet," she hissed, "or I swear to God I will make you quiet." A pause. Then, from the opening, a whisper came up, too soft for Etta to understand, but unmistakably a woman's voice. Not Adelaide's. Celeste's face tightened like she'd been slapped. "You don't get to bargain," she murmured. "You don't get to speak." She slammed the trapdoor shut and rolled the rug back, smoothing it with her palm as if she could smooth the truth back into hiding. Then she stood, and she turned, slowly, toward the window curtain. Etta's lungs stopped working. Celeste walked closer. The candlelight advanced, pushing shadows away, pushing Etta's hiding place into peril. Celeste stopped a foot from the curtain and spoke softly, almost kindly. "I can smell fear," she said. "It always smells like sweat and bad decisions." Etta's muscles trembled. She could run. She could burst out and sprint, but where? The hallway would hold her like a throat holds a scream. Celeste lifted her free hand and touched the curtain fabric. Just touched it. Then she let it drop. "I wonder," she said, voice thoughtful, "who will be brave enough to steal from me?" She turned away as if bored, blew out the candle, and left the room in darkness. Etta stayed behind the curtain, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. When the door finally shut, Etta slid down the wall, key still clenched in her fist, sweat cold on her back. Adelaide had been right. Under the boards, there's more. And Celeste didn't just stand on her sins. She fed them. Etta slipped out of the study, heart pounding, and made it back to the kitchen before dawn could betray her. But the day did not bring safety. It brought Dr. Wren. He arrived mid-morning, a thin man with pale hair and eyes that looked past people like they were furniture. He went straight to the smokehouse, and Pike went with him like a guard dog. Etta watched from the kitchen doorway, hidden behind hanging herbs. Dr. Wren carried a black bag. When he entered the smokehouse, he did not greet Adelaide like a patient. He greeted her like a problem. Etta couldn't hear what was said, but she saw Adelaide's body tense, saw her mouth move fast in protest, saw Dr. Wren raise a hand, calm, practiced, and press something to Adelaide's face. Adelaide fought, weak and desperate. Then she went still. Ruthie stumbled out a minute later, face white, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the basin. She did not look at Etta. She looked at the ground like it was safer than any human face. Etta grabbed Ruthie's arm when Pike wasn't watching. "What did he do?" Ruthie's lips trembled. He said she's sick," Ruthie whispered. "He said she's dangerous. He gave her something. He told Pike to keep her asleep. To keep her—" Etta's voice nearly broke. "Asleep?" Ruthie nodded, tears in her eyes. "He said if she speaks, people will ask questions. He said questions are disease." Etta's stomach twisted. Celeste wasn't just cruel. She was careful. That afternoon, Mr. Hallowell called for Etta. It was unusual. White men called for slaves the way you called for water. But this was different. This was a summons. Etta's feet felt like stones as she climbed the front steps and entered the big house. Mr. Hallowell sat in the parlor, alone. The floorboards had been loosely set back in place, as if the house wanted to pretend none of it happened. His hand shook slightly as he poured whiskey into a glass he didn't drink. He looked older than he had in the doorway the day before. "Etta," he said quietly, "not girl, not you." Her throat tightened. "You were in this house when Adelaide came," he continued. "You served her." Etta kept her eyes lowered. "Yes, sir." He swallowed. "Did you ever hear anything? Before yesterday?" Etta's heartbeat thundered. This was the moment where the house tested her, the way it always did. Tell the truth and die. Or lie and live. But Adelaide's whisper burned in her mind. There's more under the boards. Etta chose a third thing. The truth, shaped carefully enough to survive. I heard tapping once, she said softly. Long time ago. Mr. Hallowell's hand tightened around the glass. And you told no one. I thought it was rats, Etta lied, because sometimes truth needed a coat. Mr. Hallowell's face twisted with something like shame. My wife told me Adelaide died, he murmured. She told me it was quick. She told me a lot of things. He stared at the floor as if it might open on its own. Etta, he said, voice low, if I ask you to do something dangerous, would you? Etta's hands clenched at her sides. A slave saying no was still a yes. It just delayed the beating. Yes, sir, she said. Mr. Hallowell's gaze lifted. In it was fear, but also something else. Resolve. Fragile as glass. I want you to go to the family plot tonight, he said. I want you to look. Etta's stomach dropped. Look at Adelaide's grave, he whispered. I want to know if there's a body. Etta's mouth went dry. Digging in the family plot was not just dangerous. It was sacrilege in White Eyes. It was a crime in law. And if Celeste found out, Mr. Hallowell's voice tightened. If there's no body, he said, then I have lived with a liar. Etta thought of Celeste's smile in the dark. I told you to stay buried. Yes, sir, Etta whispered. That night when the plantation slept uneasily, Etta walked to the family plot with a shovel she stole from the tool shed. The moon was thin. The air was heavy with insects. The graves were neat stones in a row like teeth. Adelaide's marker was the newest, fresh enough that the earth around it still looked restless. Etta set the shovel into the dirt. The first scoop felt like betrayal. The second felt like necessity. The third felt like the land itself was tired of keeping secrets. She dug fast, breath tight. Sweat slid down her back. The earth gave way, damp and clinging. The sound of the shovel striking wood made Etta freeze. Coffin. Her hands shook as she scraped away dirt. She uncovered the lid enough to pry. Etta's fingers found the seam and pulled. The coffin opened with a groan. Etta stared into darkness, bracing herself for the sight of a body. There was no body. There was no cloth, no hair, no bones, only an iron chest. Etta's breath left her in a silent burst. The chest sat in the coffin like a heart locked away. It was heavy, black, with a simple latch. No name, no decoration, a box buried where a woman should have been. Etta's hands hovered. She shouldn't open it. She should close the coffin and run and pretend she never saw. But Adelaide's eyes flashed in her mind. Mr. Hallowell's trembling voice. Celeste's trap door. Etta lifted the latch. Inside were papers, letters, folded tight, tied in bundles, a small cloth pouch, and on top, a photograph, edges worn. Etta stared. She had seen photographs before, rare, precious. This one showed a young woman, hair pinned back, expression stern. It was Celeste, but she was not alone. Beside her stood a girl, maybe 12, maybe 13, light-skinned, eyes bright, face half sullen, half frightened. The girl's hand was held tightly by Celeste, as if Celeste feared the child might run out of the frame and out of her control. Etta's throat closed, because Etta knew that girl, not from the big house, from under it, from a memory she had never named. A flash of a face in a floor crack when she was little, a whispering voice telling her to hush, a small hand sliding out to take a scrap of bread. Etta had been feeding someone. All those years ago. Not rats, a child. Footsteps crunched behind her. Etta's blood turned to ice. She slammed the chest lid shut too late, shovel half raised like a useless weapon. A figure stood at the edge of the grave, moonlight catching on a gun barrel. Pike. His smile was slow and satisfied. Well, he drawled softly, ain't you the curious one? Etta's mouth went dry. She stood knee-deep in a dug grave like she had dug her own. Pike stepped closer, gun steady. Mrs. Hallowell said somebody been sniffing around, he murmured. I told her. Don't worry. Fear got a smell. Etta's hands trembled around the shovel handle. I was told to... Pike's eyes narrowed. Told by who? Etta's mind raced. Mr. Hallowell had tried to use her like a quiet hand to pull truth out of the earth. If she said his name, Pike would carry it to Celeste like a gift. If she lied, Pike would kill her and call it discipline. Etta made a decision in a single heartbeat. She would not die quietly. I was told by the dead, she said, voice shaking but clear. Miss Adelaide told me. Pike laughed soft. Dead women giving orders now? She ain't dead, Etta snapped, and immediately regretted the sharpness. Pike's smile fell. No, he said. She ain't. Not yet. He raised the gun slightly. Step out! Etta's legs felt numb, but she climbed out of the grave, shovel still in hand. Dirt clung to her skirts. Pike glanced at the open coffin, eyes flicking to the chest. Hunger sharpened his face. What you find? Etta held the shovel tighter. Nothing, she lied. Pike's gaze moved to her hands, to her dirt-streaked fingers. He stepped closer, gun barrel nearly touching her chest. You think you brave, he murmured. You think you got some story that make you important. Etta's heart hammered. I think, she whispered. You scared of what's in that box. Pike's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. Then he struck. Not with the gun, but with his free hand, backhanding Etta hard enough that her vision flashed white. She stumbled, tasted blood. Pike leaned in, voice low and venomous. I ain't scared of paper, he hissed. Paper don't whip. Paper don't hang. Paper don't... A voice cut through the night, sharp as a blade. Put the gun down. Pike froze. Mr. Hallowell stood a few yards away, a lantern in hand, another gun in the other. His hand shook, but the barrel was aimed. Pike's expression shifted, not to fear, but to calculation. Sir, Pike said, voice smooth, this girl was digging in the family plot. Mr. Hallowell's eyes flashed with something wild. So was I, he said. In my mind, all day. He stepped closer, lantern light revealing the open coffin, the chest. Pike's gaze darted. Ma'am will be upset. Mr. Hallowell's mouth twisted. Ma'am, he said quietly, has been upset for years. For a moment, the night held still, as if waiting to see which man's fear would win. Then Mr. Hallowell's voice dropped. Go, he told Pike. Now. Pike stared, jaw tight. Sir, go, Mr. Hallowell repeated louder. Before I decide, I'm not a patient man. Pike's eyes flicked to the coffin, to the chest, then back to Mr. Hallowell's shaking hand. He lowered his gun slowly. Yes, sir, he said, but his tone promised this wasn't over. He backed away into darkness like a snake retreating to strike later. When Pike was gone, Mr. Hallowell's shoulders sagged. He looked at Etta, face pale in lantern light. I'm sorry, he whispered, and Etta almost laughed, because sorry was a small word for a big house full of evil. He stepped to the coffin and stared at the chest. His hands trembled as he reached. Etta's voice came out hoarse. There's a photograph, she said, and letters. Mr. Hallowell swallowed. My wife? He whispered. What have you been hiding? He lifted the chest out of the coffin like it weighed more than iron, like it weighed years. And then, from the direction of the big house, faint but unmistakable, there came a scream. Not from the quarters, from inside the house. A woman's scream, high and terrified, like someone had opened a trap door and found teeth. Etta's blood went cold. That's not Miss Adelaide, she whispered. Mr. Hallowell's eyes widened. They ran. They ran toward the big house, lantern swinging, chest clutched like evidence, dirt still on their hands. The porch steps thudded under their feet. The hallway swallowed them, shadows moving like living things. The scream came again, from upstairs, from the study. Mr. Hallowell burst into the room, lantern held high. The rug was pulled back, the trap door was open, and standing over it, hair wild, face pale, was Ruthie, hands covered in dust and splinters, eyes huge with terror. Ruthie choked. She grabbed me. From the dark. She said she'd been waiting. Mr. Hallowell stepped forward, lantern light spilling into the opening. A face rose from below, not Adelaide's. A woman's face, younger than Celeste, older than Ruthie, light-skinned, eyes sharp, mouth set in a line that looked like it had been practicing patience for years. She stared up at them like a person staring at the ceiling of a prison cell. Then she smiled. "I told her," the woman said, voice clear, calm, terrifying in its steadiness. "I told her the past don't stay buried." Etta's knees nearly buckled. Mr. Hallowell's breath hitched. "Who are you?" The woman's smile widened just a little. "Tell your wife," she said softly, "that her daughter is tired of being stepped on." Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Celeste appeared in the doorway, robe open, hair loose, eyes blazing with fury that tried to disguise itself as control. Her gaze snapped to the trap door, to the face rising from it. For the first time, Celeste's mask shattered completely. "No," Celeste whispered, not as a command, but as a plea. The woman in the opening tilted her head. "Hello, Mama," she said, gentle as a lullaby. The room went silent in a way Etta had never heard before. Silent like the world itself had stopped to listen. Celeste's lips trembled. Her hands clenched. Her eyes darted, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Mr. Hallowell's voice came out broken. "Celeste," he whispered. "What is this?" Celeste's face hardened again, desperation forging her back into something sharp. "A trick!" she snapped. "A devil's trick! She's yours," the woman interrupted softly. "And you buried me alive." Celeste's breath hitched. Mr. Hallowell stared at his wife as if he had never seen her before. He lifted the iron chest slightly. "And you buried this too," he said, voice trembling with something that might become rage. Celeste's eyes flicked to the chest, and fear flashed. Pure. Unmistakable. Etta understood then, with a clarity that made her stomach churn. Adelaide under the floor had been one secret. The daughter under the trapdoor had been another. The chest in the coffin was the glue holding them together. Celeste's voice sharpened. "Close that," she ordered, pointing at the trapdoor. "Now! Pike!" But Pike was not here. Pike was outside in the dark, waiting to see which side would feed him. Mr. Hallowell didn't move. The woman under the floor leaned up, arms braced on the opening, eyes never leaving Celeste. "You told me the world would eat me," she murmured. "So you hid me in the belly of the house." Celeste's eyes were wet now, but not with remorse, with panic. "You were sick," she hissed. "You were wrong. I did what I had to." "You did what you wanted," the woman corrected gently. "And now I'm doing what I want." She climbed out of the opening with slow care, like a creature unfolding after years in a cage. She was thin, but not weak. Her hands were scarred, but her posture was upright. She looked at Etta, and Etta realized with a shock that the woman's gaze was not new. It was familiar. It was the gaze of the girl in the photograph, the girl Etta had fed bread scraps to through a crack in the parlor floor. Etta's throat tightened. She started. The woman smiled at her, softer now. "You kept me alive," she said, "so I remembered you. And I remembered what you deserved." Etta's eyes stung. She didn't know what she deserved. She only knew what she had endured. Mr. Hallowell's voice was a whisper of disbelief. "A daughter," he murmured. "Celeste, you had a daughter." Celeste's face twisted. "She was a mistake," she spat. "A stain. You don't understand." The woman's smile vanished. "Oh, I understand," she said quietly. "I lived under your feet. I listened to you laugh upstairs. I listened to you pray. I listened to you call yourself righteous while you fed me like a rat." Celeste's chest heaved. "You should be grateful," she snapped, madness edging her words. "You lived. I survived," the woman corrected. There's a difference. Mr. Hallowell set the iron chest on the desk with a heavy thud. Open it, he demanded, voice cracking. Open it now. Celeste's eyes darted. Her hand moved toward the drawer, toward a bell cord. Etta moved first. She stepped forward and grabbed Celeste's wrist. Not hard, not violent, just enough to stop the motion. Celeste's head snapped toward her, eyes wide with fury. You... Etta's voice came out steady, surprising even her. No more, she said. In that moment, Etta felt something shift. Not power, not safety, but a line drawn in her own soul. Celeste's hand trembled under Etta's grip. Then Celeste did something Etta hadn't expected. She laughed, a small, brittle laugh. You think this ends with a box? Celeste whispered. You think a few letters undo years? You think anyone will believe a dead woman, a hidden woman, and a slave? The woman, Celeste's daughter, stepped closer. Her eyes were cold now. We don't need belief, she said. We need truth to touch air. Mr. Hallowell's hand shook as he fumbled with the chest latch. He opened it. Letters lay inside like bones. He pulled one bundle free, ribbon snapping. He unfolded the top sheet, eyes scanning, face draining. Etta couldn't read, but she watched his expression change. Shock, then horror, then a slow dawning rage. What? Mr. Hallowell whispered, voice breaking. Have you done? Celeste's chin lifted defiant. What I had to, she repeated, but the words sounded weaker now. Mr. Hallowell looked up, eyes wet. You sold her, he said, voice shaking. You sold your own... Celeste's eyes flared. I protected this house, she hissed. I protected you. You protected yourself, the hidden daughter said, voice flat. And you buried everything else. Mr. Hallowell's hand shook as he pulled another paper free, a contract thick with seals. His lips moved as he read. Then he looked at Etta. Etta, he said softly, and his voice held something like apology again, but sharper. Her name is... The hidden woman interrupted. I have my own name, she said. The one you never spoke. She looked at Mr. Hallowell. My name is Mercy, she said, and the irony of it hung in the room like smoke. Celeste named me that because she liked the taste of the word. Celeste flinched. Mercy's gaze slid to Etta again. And Adelaide, Mercy added softly, is not the only one in the smokehouse. Etta's blood turned to ice. Ruthie's eyes widened. What? Mercy's voice was calm, but her words were a match. Celeste doesn't just bury people, she said. She stores them, like goods. Mr. Hallowell's face went pale. What are you saying? Mercy tilted her head toward the window. Listen, she whispered. At first, Etta heard nothing but her own heartbeat. Then, faint, far, but real, there came a muffled pounding. From outside, from the direction of the smokehouse. Not Adelaide's weak tapping, something stronger, someone else. Celeste's face drained of color so fast it was almost comical. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Mr. Hallowell turned, lantern swinging. Pike! He shouted, no answer. Mercy's voice was quiet, almost kind. Pike doesn't serve you, she murmured. He serves whoever is winning. Then Mercy stepped close to Celeste, so close their faces nearly touched. You taught me how to wait, Mercy said softly. Now, I'm done waiting. Celeste's eyes flashed, and for a split second, Etta saw it. Celeste wasn't just frightened. Celeste was calculating. Her hand shot toward the desk, toward a small pistol hidden beneath a stack of papers. Etta lunged without thinking. Ruthie screamed. Mr. Hallowell shouted. Mercy moved like she'd been planning for this moment for years. Celeste's fingers brushed the pistol. And Mercy slammed the iron chest lid down on Celeste's hand. Not crushing, not gore, but enough to make Celeste shriek and recoil, clutching her fingers. The pistol skittered across the desk. Mr. Hallowell grabbed it, breath ragged, face stunned by what his own house had become. Celeste backed toward the door, eyes wild. You think you've won, she hissed. You think truth saves anyone? Truth gets people killed. Mercy's smile returned, thin as a knife. Then let it, she said. And in that moment, Etta realized Mercy was not asking for justice the way preachers asked for it. Mercy was asking for reckoning. Messy, dangerous, unstoppable. The pounding from the smokehouse came again, louder now, urgent. Mr. Hallowell's voice shook. "Go!" he snapped at Etta. "Go see!" Etta didn't wait to be told twice. She ran. She ran down the stairs, skirts flying, heart punching her ribs. She burst out the back door and sprinted toward the smokehouse, the pounding guiding her like a drum. When she reached the door, she found it barred from the outside with a thick plank. Etta yanked at it, hands slipping. Inside, someone shouted, muffled, desperate, not Adelaide's voice, a man's. Etta's breath caught. A man locked in there too. She grabbed a rock and slammed it against the plank's nail. The nail bent. She slammed again. Again! The plank loosened enough to yank free. Etta threw it aside and hauled the door open. The smell hit her first, then darkness, then movement. A man stumbled forward, blinking at light like he'd been born into it. He was black, tall, shoulders thin but hard, face bruised in old places. His eyes were furious. He grabbed Etta's arm. "Where is she?" he rasped. "Where's Celeste?" Etta's heart hammered. "Who are you?" The man swallowed, voice shaking with hatred. "I'm the one she couldn't bury," he said. "And I'm the one Adelaide tried to save." Behind him, Adelaide lay on the pallet, half conscious, eyes fluttering. She turned her head slightly, saw Etta, and whispered, "That's Daniel." Etta's mind reeled. Daniel. A name she had heard in whispers years ago, a name spoken like a curse, like a warning. A man who had worked the stables, who had disappeared after Celeste accused him of theft. He hadn't disappeared. He had been stored. Daniel's eyes burned. "She locked me in the dark," he said, voice tight. "She fed me just enough to keep me from dying, because she likes to keep living proof of her power." Etta swallowed hard. "She's in the house," Etta said. "Upstairs." Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked toward the big house like it was a monster he finally had a knife for. But before he could move, a shout rang out from the yard. Pike. He emerged from shadows with two other men, white men from town, drawn by rumor like flies. Pike held a torch. The flame danced in his eyes. "Well," Pike called, voice loud and pleased. "Look what crawled out." Daniel stiffened. Etta's blood ran cold. Pike wasn't here to obey anyone. He was here to decide who to sell, who to silence, and who to blame. Pike raised his voice toward the big house. "Ma'am," he shouted, "you want the smokehouse cleaned out. I got it cleaned out, but we got a bigger problem. Your house slaves done gone mad." Etta's chest tightened. Pike was rewriting the story in real time. Behind Etta, Adelaide stirred weakly, trying to sit. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "He'll kill us," Daniel whispered. Etta's mind flashed to Mercy upstairs, to Celeste's fear, to Mr. Hallowell holding a pistol like he didn't know what to do with it. The house had become a battlefield, and the past was not just rising, it was swinging. Etta stepped forward into the yard, hands raised, voice loud enough to cut through Pike's lie. "Mr. Hallowell," she screamed. "Pike got men. He's..." Pike's face twisted. "Shut your mouth!" He lunged toward her, and the big house window above shattered outward. Glass rained down like sharp rain. A figure leaned out. Mr. Hallowell, lantern in hand, pistol aimed. "Pike!" Mr. Hallowell shouted, voice cracking with rage and fear. "Leave! Now!" Pike froze, then smiled slowly, like a man who had been waiting for a master to show he was weak enough to fight. "Yes, sir," Pike called sweetly. "But you might want to know. Your wife's screaming your name." Etta's stomach dropped. A woman's scream tore through the night again, from upstairs, raw and furious. Not fear, rage. Then another sound. Crashing. Like furniture thrown. Mercy's voice rang out, clear and terrible, carrying down through the broken window. "You buried me alive," Mercy shouted. "Now I'm digging my way out." Mr. Hallowell's face went white in lantern light. Pike's eyes gleamed. "Well now," he murmured to the men beside him. "This just got profitable." Etta realized then the worst truth. Even truth could be used as a weapon. by the wrong hands. Pike lifted his torch. "Burn it," he said softly. "Burn the smokehouse. Burn the evidence. Burn the whole—" A shot cracked. Not into flesh. Into the ground. Close enough to make dirt jump. Mr. Hallowell's hand shook on the pistol. "No!" he shouted. "No more burning. No more burying." Pike stared up at him. Smile gone now. "You think you can stop what you started?" he called. "You think the town won't come when they hear your dead daughter-in-law crawled out your floor?" Mr. Hallowell's voice broke. "Let them come." Pike's eyes narrowed. He turned slightly, shifting his body to shield himself. He was thinking, calculating, deciding whose side would let him live and thrive. Then Celeste appeared at the upstairs window. Hair wild, face twisted, eyes blazing with something unhinged. She leaned out and screamed, "Kill them!" The yard went still. Celeste pointed down at Etta, at Daniel, at the open smokehouse, like she was pointing at pests. "Kill them all," she shrieked. "They're lying. They're devils. They're—" Mercy stepped into the window frame behind Celeste. Mercy's hand gripped Celeste's shoulder, not gently. Celeste jolted, trying to twist away. Mercy's voice was calm, almost tender, but it carried like a bell. "Tell them the truth," she said softly into Celeste's ear, loud enough for the yard to hear. "Or I will." Celeste's mouth opened. Her eyes flicked, frantic. And then, because Celeste Hallowell had built her life on control, she did the one thing she thought would bring it back. She hurled herself backward, trying to knock Mercy out of the window. For one horrifying instant, both women teetered. Etta's breath stopped. Mr. Hallowell shouted, "Mercy!" Mercy's fingers caught the window frame. Celeste slipped, robe tangling. Celeste screamed, not rage now, but panic. Mercy's grip tightened. She could have let go. She didn't. She hauled Celeste back in with a strength that surprised everyone, including Celeste. Celeste collapsed inside the room, sobbing, shaking, humiliated. Mercy stood in the window, breath ragged, hair falling loose, eyes blazing. "I'm not like you," Mercy shouted down. "I don't bury people because they inconvenience me." Then Mercy's gaze dropped to Pike. "But I will bury your lies," she added, voice sharpening. "Right here in the open." Pike's face tightened. His men shifted uneasily. This wasn't the story they wanted to be part of. This wasn't a simple beating behind a barn. This was a scandal. And scandals drew crowds, and crowds drew consequences. Pike spit to the side. "This ain't over," he snarled. Mr. Hallowell's voice was low, steady now in a way it hadn't been before. "It is for you," he said. "Leave my land." Pike hesitated, then backed away slowly, torch still in hand. His men followed, eyes darting, already imagining how they would retell this in town to make themselves innocent. When they disappeared into the night, the yard exhaled. But Etta knew better than to think breathing meant safety. Truth had touched air. Now it would spread like fire. By morning, the town would know. By noon, the law would arrive. And by night, people would decide what parts of the truth were acceptable and what parts needed to be buried again. Etta helped Daniel steady Adelaide, helped carry her toward the kitchen, toward Minta's sharp hands and quick mind. Adelaide's eyes fluttered, but she clung to Etta's wrist with surprising strength. "Don't let them—" "Put me back," Adelaide whispered. Etta leaned close. "They won't," she promised, even though promises were fragile things on plantations. Upstairs, Mercy's voice carried down in fragments. Words like letters, contract, proof, mother, alive. Celeste's sobs came too, messy and furious, like a woman realizing her own floor had turned against her. Etta stood in the yard for a moment, staring at the big house, at the bright walls, the neat windows, the illusion of order. Under those floors, someone had lived. Under those floors, someone had waited. And now, with boards lifted and coffins opened and names spoken aloud, the plantation's past wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a scream. Dawn didn't make the plantation gentler. It just made it visible. By the time the first rooster called, Celeste had already washed her face, pinned her hair, and rebuilt herself into the version the world believed in. Her right hand was wrapped in linen where the chest had caught her fingers, but she held the injured hand high like a badge. Not a wound. Mr. Hallowell didn't sleep. He sat in his study with the iron chest open on the desk, papers spread like a body laid out for identification. Lantern oil burned low. His eyes kept catching on the same proof again and again, as if reading it twice could turn it into something else. Etta stood near the doorway, not invited to sit, not told to leave. She heard the big house wake in its own way. Soft steps, creaking boards, distant murmurs. She heard Celeste's voice drift down the hall, calm and bright. "Bring the carriage around," Celeste said to someone. "I'll go to town myself. Dr. Wren must come again. We have a disturbance. A disturbance, like a spilled bowl, like a broken vase, not like a woman found alive under the floorboards. Mercy was upstairs too, not locked away now, standing in the corner of the study with her arms folded, watching Mr. Hallowell read. For years she'd been under his feet, under his notice. Now she watched him like a stranger deciding whether to forgive a face. Adelaide was in the kitchen, hidden behind the pantry door with Minta and Ruthie tending her, keeping her quiet, keeping her breathing. Daniel sat on a stool near the back step, shoulders tense, eyes tracking every sound. He had the posture of a man who'd been forced into stillness so long he didn't trust motion. And Pike was out there somewhere, moving first, because men like Pike always moved first. Mr. Hallowell pressed a hand to his forehead. "This paper," he whispered, voice cracking. "It's dated 3 years ago. It's an agreement." Mercy stepped forward. "Read it aloud," she said. Celeste's voice floated again from the hall, closer now. "And tell Sheriff Caldwell I require his discretion. There's talk of unruly servants." Mr. Hallowell's eyes lifted sharply. He looked at Etta. "Did she send for the sheriff?" he asked. Etta's throat tightened. "Sound like it, sir." Mercy's mouth curled slightly. "Of course she did." Mr. Hallowell's hand trembled as he pulled one sheet free and read, lips moving. "This says, 'The physician agrees to certify death by fever,'" he whispered. His gaze snapped up, stunned. "Adelaide." Mercy's eyes didn't blink. "She didn't want Adelaide dead," Mercy said softly. "She wanted Adelaide erased. Death is messy. Erasure is tidy." Mr. Hallowell swallowed hard, looking suddenly nauseated. "And this one?" He lifted another sheet. His voice thinned to a whisper. "It names you. It calls you property." Mercy's eyes stayed on the paper. "She wrote me down like furniture," she said. Quiet as a prayer, nobody answered. "So, if I ever touched daylight, she could point and say I belong to her." Mr. Hallowell's jaw tightened. "You're my wife's child," he said, voice strangled. "And she made sure you never had to say it out loud," Mercy cut in, "because the word daughter would have forced you to look at what she'd done." Etta heard a small sound behind her, Daniel inhaling sharply through his teeth. He didn't speak, but his eyes burned. Mr. Hallowell turned toward him, as if finally seeing him fully. "Daniel," he said hoarsely, "why were you in that smokehouse?" Daniel's lips pressed together. He looked at Mercy. Not Mr. Hallowell. Like permission mattered more from her. Mercy nodded once. "Tell it," she said. Daniel's voice came out rough, scraped by old darkness. "She said I knew too much," he said. "She said my mouth was dangerous." Mr. Hallowell stared, confused and horrified. "About what?" Daniel's gaze flicked toward the doorway, toward where Celeste had been, toward where Celeste still was somewhere in the house. Then he spoke, each word heavy. "About who Mercy's father is." Silence filled the study so fast it felt like the air had turned to water. Mr. Hallowell's eyes widened. "No," he whispered. But it wasn't denial. It was the sound a man makes when the floor drops. Daniel didn't blink. "She didn't lock me away because I stole," he said. "She locked me away because I existed." Mr. Hallowell's face drained of color. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Mercy's voice was calm, but it carried a warning sharp enough to cut. "Now you understand why she couldn't parade me upstairs," she said, "and why she couldn't kill me either. Killing makes questions. Hiding makes silence." Etta's chest felt tight. In that moment, she understood the shape of Celeste's fear. Not fear of sin, fear of being seen. A knock sounded downstairs, hard, official. Etta felt her stomach drop. Mercy's head tilted. "That'll be the sheriff," she said. Another knock, louder. Mr. Hallowell's hands trembled over the papers. "If he sees these," he whispered. She'll talk first," Mercy finished, "and the first story is the one people remember." Etta understood what Mercy meant. Celeste would paint a picture before anyone else could. A crazy woman, unruly slaves, a grieving husband, a house under attack. It would sound clean. It would sound believable. "Then we go first," Mercy said. Mr. Hallowell stared at her, breath shallow. "How?" Mercy's eyes slid to Etta. "You," she said softly. "You heard her under the boards. You carried water to the smokehouse. You saw the bar across the door. You saw Daniel crawl out." Etta's mouth went dry. "They won't listen to me," she whispered. Mercy's gaze held hers. "They won't listen to you as a witness," Mercy said. "But they will listen to you as a spark." Etta didn't fully understand, but she felt the urgency behind the words like heat. Another knock. Then the door downstairs opened without permission. Bootsteps entered the house. A man's voice boomed through the hall. "Mr. Hallowell, Sheriff Caldwell, you sent for assistance." Celeste's voice answered immediately, sweet and shaken in all the right places. "Thank God you're here." Mercy's expression didn't change, but her shoulders tightened. "Hear that?" she murmured. "She's already crying." Mr. Hallowell looked like he might fold in half. He grabbed the iron chest lid as if to close it, to hide it again out of habit. Mercy put a hand on the lid. "No more burying," she said. Mr. Hallowell swallowed, then nodded once, trembling. "All right," he whispered. "All right." Footsteps climbed the stairs, heavy, measured. Not Pike's, different. Sheriff Caldwell appeared in the doorway a heartbeat later. Broad-shouldered, gray mustache, eyes that had seen enough sin to stop pretending surprise. Behind him stood two deputies, and behind them, Dr. Wren, thin and pale, his black bag hanging like a threat. Celeste hovered near the stair rail, one hand pressed to her chest, the other wrapped in linen. Her eyes were red, but her posture was immaculate. "Sheriff," Celeste breathed, "it's dreadful. A lunatic vagrant was found under our floorboards. My husband is overwrought. The servants are stirred up. I fear someone has put ideas into their heads." Sheriff Caldwell's gaze swept the room. It landed on Mercy. His eyes narrowed. "Who's she?" Celeste answered instantly. "A runaway," she said, voice trembling with practiced concern. "We found her hiding in the walls. She's been causing confusion." Mercy smiled, not friendly, not nervous. A smile that said, "I expected that lie." Sheriff Caldwell's gaze moved to Daniel. "And him?" Celeste's voice sharpened. "A thief," she snapped, then softened again. "A dangerous one. Pike had him secured for everyone's safety." Daniel's hands clenched. His knuckles went pale. Mr. Hallowell stepped forward, and his voice came out hoarse. "Sheriff," he said, "my wife is not telling you the truth." Celeste turned to him, with a look of wounded devotion so convincing it would have fooled a stranger. "Darling," she whispered, "you don't know what you're saying." Dr. Wren stepped slightly forward, calm. "He's under strain," Dr. Wren said mildly. "Lack of sleep can—" "Silence," Mercy said. The word was soft, but it hit the room like a slap, because a woman, especially a woman called Runaway, wasn't supposed to command anything. Sheriff Caldwell's eyebrows lifted. "What did you say?" Mercy took one step forward into the lantern light. "I said silence," she repeated, voice steady. "Because I've listened long enough to men explain away what women survive." Celeste's face tightened. "Sheriff, you see? She's insolent." Mercy turned her head slightly toward Celeste, eyes cold. "Call me insolent again," she said quietly, "and I will call you Mama in front of your deputies." Celeste went still. It was small, just a pause, just a blink, but Etta saw it. Dr. Wren saw it too. The sheriff's eyes sharpened. The deputies shifted their weight. Sheriff Caldwell looked between Mercy and Celeste. "Mama?" he repeated slowly. Celeste recovered fast, too fast. "She's deranged," Celeste said, laugh trembling. "She's trying to—" Mr. Hallowell slammed his palm onto the desk. The sound cracked through the room, and for once Celeste's voice stopped. Mr. Hallowell's hands shook as he gestured to the open iron chest. "Sheriff," he said, voice breaking, "these are letters. Agreements. Payments. My wife arranged for Dr. Wren to certify my daughter-in-law's death. Adelaide is alive. She was under our floor." Dr. Wren's expression didn't change much, but his eyes tightened the way a noose tightens when you pull. Sheriff Caldwell's gaze snapped to Dr. Wren. "Doctor?" Dr. Wren gave a thin smile. "People misunderstand paperwork," he said smoothly. "Grief scrambles." Mercy reached into the chest and pulled out a folded sheet, then held it up. "This is in your hand," she said to Dr. Wren. "Your signature." Dr. Wren's smile thinned further. "Forged," he said. "Common trick." Mercy nodded once as if she'd expected that too. Then she looked at Etta. "Go," Mercy said softly. Etta's legs moved before her fear could vote. She ran downstairs, heart pounding, and into the kitchen. Minta looked up sharply. "Don't tell me they brought the law," she whispered. "They did," Etta panted. "And Celeste is talking first." Adelaide was half propped against sacks of flour, face pale, eyes fever bright. She looked up at Etta, and her gaze sharpened. "They'll put me back," Adelaide rasped. "They'll say I'm—" Etta crouched beside her. "You can walk?" Etta whispered. Adelaide swallowed. "I can crawl," she said, voice rough. "And right now, that's enough." Etta glanced at Ruthie. "Help me," she said. Ruthie's face was scared, but she nodded. Together they lifted Adelaide, slow and careful. Adelaide's body trembled, but her eyes were fixed on something far ahead, like she'd been crawling toward daylight for years and wasn't about to stop now. They moved through the hallway toward the stairs. Above, Celeste's voice floated down again, high, pleading. "Sheriff, my husband is not well. These servants have frightened him. Please, please take that girl away before she says anything else." Adelaide's lips pulled back slightly. "She's terrified," Adelaide whispered, voice hoarse but satisfied. "Good." They reached the top of the stairs. Etta could see into the study. Sheriff Caldwell standing stiff. Mr. Hallowell white-faced. Dr. Wren calm and predatory. Celeste trembling with perfectly placed tears. Mercy standing like a blade. Etta stepped forward and Adelaide did too, leaning on Ruthie, swaying but upright. Every head turned. Celeste's breath hitched, and for the first time her performance broke into something real. No cry, no gasp, a whisper almost childlike. "No." Adelaide took one shaky step into the room, and her voice came out raw and unmistakable. "Hello, Celeste," she said. Sheriff Caldwell's face shifted. Confusion, then shock, then recognition. "Mrs. Adelaide Vane," he murmured. Celeste's eyes were wild now. "That is not Adelaide," she snapped, too loud. This is a trick." Adelaide lifted her bruised wrist, showing the rope marks, then pointed, trembling, toward the floor beyond the rug. "Open it," she rasped. "Open the boards in front of the sheriff. Let him smell where you put me." Sheriff Caldwell's gaze hardened. He turned to a deputy. "Pry it," he ordered. Celeste stepped forward, voice sharp. "You cannot vandalize my home." Sheriff Caldwell didn't even look at her. "Deputy," he repeated. "Pry it." The deputy pulled the rug back. The floor seam showed like a scar. As the iron bar slid in, Etta felt her stomach twist with the memory of that first tapping. The room held its breath again, waiting to hear the house confess. The board lifted with a groan, and the smell rose, undeniable even in daylight. Dampness and fear trapped in wood. Sheriff Caldwell's jaw tightened. He stared down into the gap. Then he looked at Celeste. Slow. You care to explain? He said, voice flat. Why, there's a damn room under your parlor. Celeste's lips trembled. Dr. Wren's eyes flicked to the window, calculating exits. Mercy spoke before Celeste could. Because she likes her secrets close, Mercy said, so she can walk over them. Sheriff Caldwell's eyes narrowed. And who are you exactly? Mercy's throat moved as she swallowed. Then she lifted her chin. My name is Mercy Hallowell, she said clearly. And if you're going to call me a liar, do it while looking at my mother. Celeste made a sound like a strangled laugh. Sheriff, she is not... Mercy cut her off, voice steady. Ask Dr. Wren why he visited the house at night, Mercy said. Ask him why he carried laudanum like holy water. Ask him why my mother paid him to call a living woman dead. Dr. Wren stepped forward gently, hands open like peace. Sheriff, he said, this is hysteria. The girl is confused. The young lady has been ill. Mr. Hallowell is... Daniel's voice came from the doorway, low, controlled. That man put a cloth over Adelaide's face, Daniel said. In the smokehouse. I saw it. Sheriff Caldwell snapped his gaze toward Daniel. You saw it when? Daniel's eyes didn't flinch. This morning, he said, when he came to keep her quiet. Dr. Wren's smile tightened. Sheriff, are we truly taking accusations from... Sheriff Caldwell held up a hand. Doctor, he said slowly, you talk too much for a man with nothing to hide. Dr. Wren's eyes flicked again, sharp. Celeste watched him, panic and fury fighting on her face, because she realized something important. Dr. Wren might save himself first. Mercy leaned closer to the sheriff, voice lower now, more precise. If you let her lead the story, Mercy said, you'll leave here thinking you saved a household from a disturbance. But you'll be wrong. This house is the disturbance. Sheriff Caldwell's jaw clenched. He looked at Mr. Hallowell. Sir, he said, is this true? Is that your wife's handwriting? Mr. Hallowell's eyes were wet. He nodded once. Yes. Sheriff Caldwell exhaled through his nose, slow. Then he turned toward Celeste fully. Mrs. Hallowell, he said, you will remain here until I decide what you are. Celeste's posture snapped upright, fury flashing. You dare speak to me? I dare, Sheriff Caldwell said, voice flat, because I've stood over too many graves and listened to too many pretty people explain them. Celeste's face twisted. Her eyes darted to the window, to the hall, to anything that could become a weapon. Then she smiled. It was not the calm smile from before. It was a desperate, sharp-edged thing. Sheriff, she said softly, do you know what happens to a town when the word scandal gets loose? People riot. Men drink. Women faint. And slaves, she looked directly at Etta when she said it, get ideas. Etta's skin prickled. Celeste stepped closer, voice silky. If you arrest me, Celeste murmured, you'll turn this plantation into a story. And stories travel. They won't just come for me. They'll come for him, she nodded toward Mr. Hallowell. And they'll come for you. And they'll come for your badge. Unless... She let the word hang. Sheriff Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Unless what? Celeste's smile sharpened. Unless we handle it as a family tragedy, she whispered. An illness. A misunderstanding. A wayward girl. A servant conspiracy. You restore order, Sheriff. You keep peace. Mercy's laugh was small and cold. There it is, Mercy murmured. Her favorite word. Peace. Celeste's eyes flashed. You think you can stand in my house and call me mother and survive? She hissed, losing her softness. You think the town will protect you? Mercy stepped forward, close enough that Celeste had to tilt her chin to keep control. I don't need the town, Mercy said quietly. I need daylight. And I have it. Celeste's pupils tightened. She saw something in Mercy's calm that frightened her more than shouting ever could. Mercy wasn't begging. Mercy was deciding. A commotion erupted outside. Shouts, boots, horses. Sheriff Caldwell snapped his head toward the window. What now? Etta's stomach sank before she even saw it, because she knew the shape of Pike's trouble. A deputy rushed in. breathless. "Sheriff! Pike's out front with men from town. Says there's a slave uprising. Says," the deputy swallowed, "says the Hallowell women are under attack." Celeste's eyes gleamed with instant triumph. "You see," she breathed, voice shaking with righteousness. "Chaos! Already!" Mercy's expression didn't change, but her gaze slid to Etta. "Told you," Mercy murmured. "First story wins unless we break it." Sheriff Caldwell's jaw clenched. He looked at Celeste, then at Mercy, then at Adelaide, swaying but standing, then at Mr. Hallowell, looking like a man watching his own life fall apart. "Deputy," Sheriff Caldwell snapped, "keep the door shut. Nobody enters without my say." Outside, Pike's voice boomed, loud enough to reach upstairs even through glass. "Sheriff, we got trouble. Them servants done lost their minds. They got a dead woman in the house." Etta's heart hammered. Pike wasn't wrong in words, just wrong in blame. Sheriff Caldwell muttered, "Damn him." Then he looked at Mercy. "If I step outside," he said quietly, "they'll demand to see what's going on. They'll demand blood." Mercy nodded once. "Then give them proof," she said. Adelaide lifted her chin, voice ragged but fierce. "Bring them inside," she rasped. "Let them see me." Celeste's face contorted. "No," she snapped. "You will not parade your sickness like—" Sheriff Caldwell cut her off. "You will be quiet," he said sharply. Then, to his deputy, "Open the door, but keep your hands on your guns." The study door opened, and the sounds from outside poured in like floodwater. Shouting, hooves, angry curiosity. Sheriff Caldwell led the way down the stairs with Mercy behind him. Adelaide supported by Etta and Ruthie, Daniel close like a shadow with teeth. In the foyer, sunlight poured through the front windows, too bright for what was coming. The front door opened, and Pike stood on the porch, torch in hand even in daylight, like he couldn't imagine life without something burning. Behind him were 3 town men, faces tight with excitement and fear, and 2 more lingered near the yard gate. Pike's eyes swept the foyer, then landed on Mercy. His smile widened. "There she is," he called loud. "That one been stirring 'em up. Sheriff, you take her, you restore order, and we all go home." Sheriff Caldwell stepped onto the porch, posture rigid. "Pike," he said, "lower that torch." Pike's smile didn't move. "I ain't lighting nothing," he lied. "I just want folks to see their way to the truth." Mercy stepped into view behind the sheriff. Pike's grin tightened. He hadn't expected her to stand so calmly. He'd expected fear. He needed fear. Fear made his story believable. Then Adelaide stepped forward into the doorway, pale but upright. The yard went quiet as if someone had pulled a plug. One of the town men stared, mouth open. That's her," he murmured. "That's Mrs. Vane." Pike's face flashed, anger then calculation. "That ain't her," he snapped quickly. "That's some sick trick. Y'all think a dead woman just climbs out a floor?" Adelaide's voice cut through, rough but clear. "I climbed out because she put me there," she rasped, pointing past the porch, past the crowd, straight toward the window above, toward Celeste, watching from behind the curtain like a queen behind glass. A murmur rolled through the yard, thickening. Pike raised his voice fast, forcing it into command. "Sheriff, you see? This is exactly what I warned you about. These folks—" He gestured toward Etta and Daniel with the torch. "They'll say anything to tear a house apart." Mercy stepped forward, and her voice carried without needing to shout. "Then let's tear it apart with paper," she said. She held up a bundle of letters tied with red ribbon. Pike's eyes flicked to them, and for a split second, something like fear crossed his face. Mercy smiled slightly. "Do you want to tell them about the payments?" she asked him softly. "Or should I?" The yard held still, Pike's jaw clenched. "I don't know what you're talking—" Mercy lifted one letter and spoke as if reading a prayer. "To Silas Pike," she said clearly. "Payment for discretion." A ripple of shock ran through the men behind Pike. One of them shifted backward, suddenly less excited to be near him. Pike's torch hand tightened. "That ain't—" Sheriff Caldwell's voice cut in, flat and dangerous. "Pike," he said, Have you been taking money from Mrs. Hallowell? Pike's eyes darted. Sheriff, now you know I... Mercy's voice sharpened. He also kept a man locked in the smokehouse, she said. A man named Daniel. Ask him how long the dark lasted. Daniel stepped forward into the doorway. The town men stared at him, like seeing a ghost with muscles. Daniel's voice was low and steady. Long enough, he said. The yard's murmur thickened into something uglier. The sound of people realizing a story is bigger than they wanted. Celeste's face appeared at the upstairs window then, like she couldn't stay hidden anymore. Sheriff, she cried, voice ringing with frantic authority. Stop this. This woman is not my daughter. She is a liar. She is a servant's... Mercy lifted her chin and spoke to the yard, not to Celeste. Tell them my father's name, Mercy called up, voice calm and lethal. Tell them why you hid me. Tell them why you couldn't bear to let a town see the truth you made. Celeste's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because the moment Celeste spoke certain truths in public, she couldn't unspeak them. Her entire life was built on never saying certain words out loud. Sheriff Caldwell's gaze lifted to Celeste. Mrs. Hallowell, he called. Come down, now. Celeste's eyes flashed. I will not be ordered. A stone flew. Not from the slave's side. From Pike's side. It struck the porch rail with a crack, splintering wood. The yard jolted. Pike's voice rose instantly, seizing the chaos. You see, he shouted. It's starting. Sheriff, you better take control before this turns into... Mercy stepped forward and raised her voice, clear, sharp, and strangely steady. If you want peace, she called, then stop letting liars sell it to you. The words hit the crowd like a slap. A couple of the town men flinched. One of them looked away, embarrassed. Another looked at Pike with new suspicion. Pike's smile vanished. He saw his story slipping. And Pike did not lose gracefully. His torch hand lifted slightly, not toward the house, toward the letters in Mercy's hand. Give me that, he snarled. Sheriff Caldwell moved to block him. Pike! Pike lunged anyway. Etta's body moved before her mind could. She stepped in, grabbing Mercy's wrist and yanking her back so the torch missed the ribbon by inches. The torch swung, flame licking the air, and Pike's other hand shot out to snatch. Daniel caught Pike's forearm, not violently, not with flourish. Just a clamp that stopped movement like a vice. Pike's eyes flared. You touch me! Daniel's voice was low, cold. I've been touched enough, he said. For a heartbeat, the yard held its breath again. Then Pike did something that made Etta's blood run colder than any threat. He screamed. Not in pain, in performance. Sheriff! Pike bellowed, throwing his head back like an actor on a stage. He's attacking me! They're attacking me! The crowd stirred. The lie was familiar. The lie was comfortable. The lie could turn into permission. Sheriff Caldwell's hand went to his gun. Enough! Sheriff Caldwell roared. His voice snapped the yard into a stuttering halt. He stepped forward, gaze hard, and shoved Pike's torch hand downward until the flame pointed at the dirt. Anybody lights anything, Sheriff Caldwell said, voice shaking with fury, and I'll put you in irons before you blink. Pike's breathing was fast now, eyes wild. His story wasn't working cleanly anymore, and that made him dangerous. Celeste's voice shrieked from upstairs, cracked and frantic. Sheriff, arrest them! Arrest all of them! They're corrupting... Sheriff Caldwell didn't look up. He kept his eyes on Pike. You, he said, step back. Pike's lips peeled back. You turning on me? He hissed, low enough only the porch could hear. Sheriff Caldwell's voice dropped. I'm turning on whoever's lying loudest, he said. Pike's eyes darted to the yard gate, to his men, to the road. Etta saw it. Pike deciding whether to run or burn. Mercy leaned close to Etta, whispering fast. He's going to try to destroy the papers, she murmured. If he can't grab them here, he'll grab them inside. Etta's stomach clenched. What do we do? Mercy's eyes flicked to the crowd, then to the open air. We make sure the town hears what's in them before they can be burned, Mercy whispered. Sheriff Caldwell turned slightly, calling to a deputy. Bring Pike inside, he ordered. Now! Pike's face twisted. I ain't... The deputy stepped forward, and in that moment, Because Pike only ever served whoever was winning, Pike made his choice. He swung the torch toward the porch steps, not to light the house, but to force space. People flinched back instinctively, and in that flinch, Pike tore free and bolted. He ran toward the yard gate like a man fleeing the devil, except Pike was the one who always carried the matches. Sheriff Caldwell cursed and started after him, deputies moving fast. The crowd shifted, confused, stirred, hungry for direction. Celeste's voice screamed from above, suddenly triumphant. See? See what you've done! Disorder! Mercy turned and looked up at Celeste, face calm. You always loved the word disorder, Mercy called, because it lets you pretend you're order. Then Mercy raised the letter bundle high and spoke so loudly that even the men at the gate could hear. This letter names the doctor, she announced, voice ringing. It names the overseer. It names the payments. It names the lie they buried under your feet. Dr. Wren's face tightened at last, and he stepped forward, too fast. Miss, he began, hand lifting as if to calm her, but his eyes were sharp with threat. Daniel moved between Dr. Wren and Mercy without a word. Dr. Wren stopped. His nostrils flared slightly. He was a man used to having his way with polite pressure. This was not polite pressure. Mr. Hallowell stepped onto the porch now, shaking but upright. He held one paper up like a confession. My wife, he said, voice breaking, paid Dr. Wren to declare Adelaide dead. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Celeste's face twisted at the window. Lies! She shrieked. Adelaide stepped forward, swaying, and lifted her voice, raw but unmistakable. If I'm lying, she rasped, then tell me how I breathed under your parlor floor. The crowd went still again, because that question had a smell, and the smell was truth. Sheriff Caldwell's shout came from the yard. Stop him! Pike was near the road now, sprinting, torch still in hand. And then Etta saw the final ugly calculation in Pike's movement. He wasn't running away from the house. He was running toward the barn, toward the tool shed, toward anything that could become a larger fire, a bigger distraction, a faster burial. Etta's throat tightened. He's going to burn something, she whispered. Mercy's eyes narrowed. Let him try, she said softly. Because if he lights a match now, it's not just a slave story. It's a town story. Etta didn't know whether that was comfort or doom. She only knew the past was loose now, and it didn't care who got scorched. Mercy turned to the crowd and lifted her chin. If you want to keep pretending this is a simple house, she called, then close your eyes. But if you want to know what's been under your feet, follow the sheriff. Follow the truth. And as Sheriff Caldwell and his deputies chased Pike toward the outbuildings, the crowd, messy, curious, frightened, shifted with them like a tide. Celeste's scream from upstairs turned into something else. Not authority now, but panic. Because for the first time, she wasn't directing where people looked. They were looking where she hadn't wanted them to. And the plantation, built on buried things, began to crack in the daylight.